If you're watching this video, it means that the Dallas Mavericks lost to the Warriors in the conference finals. Now, by no means is this a failure on the Mavericks' part. In fact, getting this far is an insane success story. However, with this success, the team has shown two important things. This is a team that you could win a championship with, but second, you would probably need to make a big move to really actually get there. Because of this success, I expect the Mavericks to get fairly busy in this offseason, so let's talk about what their future holds. Before I continue on with this video, if you are new here and you haven't subscribed to this channel already, please be sure to do so for more NBA content. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. I think it's safe to say that the Dallas Mavericks were a surprise this postseason. If anything, the biggest surprise. It's either them or the Suns for losing to them. And I actually think them breaking through and knocking on the door of a finals appearance, perhaps prematurely, will actually benefit them in the long run in terms of the pressure it will put on the Mavericks front office. It's not dissimilar to after LeBron took the Cavs to the finals in 2007. After that happened, the general perception was, wow, this kid is really good. The Cavs better do their due diligence to make sure that they can get back here, and then they will have the proper firepower to actually win. Now, of course, that didn't actually happen in the case of LeBron and the Cavs, but the pressure that I'm referencing was very much there. One would just hope that the Mavericks can respond to that pressure rather than just not doing anything for a few years, losing the guy in free agency, and then having the owner write a really mean letter about the guy after the fact. My overall point, I'm glad the Mavericks were a little prematurely successful because it probably means that the franchise will try and speed up the trajectory of the team. So, with that said, how do they speed up that trajectory and potentially win Luka the first of what I hope and assume will be multiple championships from him? Well, it's no secret that acquiring another star level player is something that pretty much everybody wants to see with this team. They hoped that Kristaps Porzingis would be that guy when they traded for him, and that obviously did not work out, and now they're in search for who that could be. Now, there's an important checklist of qualities that need to be met when being the second guy paired next to Luka Doncic, and it's very important that this hypothetical new player meets these requirements. This player needs to be someone who doesn't dribble a lot. It can be someone who is a ball handler, but it can't be excessive and someone who's dribbling most of the shot clock. That's Luka's job. This player needs to be great to elite on at least one end of the floor, and ideally on the offensive end, because that one just simply matters more. And also because this player can't be a big-time ball handler, this player needs to have a sufficient off-ball game. And then last but not least, they need to be, well, actually obtainable in a trade, realistically. And speaking of what is obtainable in a trade, let's actually look at what Dallas has to offer other teams. The big potential asset is Jalen Brunson in a sign and trade, not necessarily saying that he has to go, but if they need to land someone huge, he would probably be a part of that. They could also trade Finney-Smith or Kleba because a lot of good teams would value them, but I'd rather hold on to them personally, and if you're trading for a star out of a rebuilding team, they have no interest in role players, so if anyone's going to be used as a salary filler, it's either going to be Tim Hardaway Jr. or Dwight Powell. Josh Green is a young player who has shown some 3-and-D chops, so he's something of an asset. And then pick-wise, Dallas has their own pick this year that is number 26, and I believe they can trade another very future first, but the Stepien rule makes things weird. They actually can trade their 2025 pick if they remove the protections on the 2023 pick that is going to the Knicks from the original Porzingis deal, and if it's the right trade, I would happily risk removing top 10 protections on a 2023 pick. I'm sure they'll be fine. So asset-wise, let's say their best possible offer would be a Brunson sign and trade. Let's say he gets about $20 million annually. Dwight Powell's expiring contract, so there's value in the $12 million in cap space that creates. Josh Green, the number 26 pick in this draft, and then let's say 2025's first as well as 2027. Rudy, you just texted me ETA. I'm literally recording it right now, so probably like 20 minutes. Let's talk names now. The first and most prominent name that I have seen everywhere is Rudy Gobert. Now, I understand this from a fit perspective because it is pretty much seamless. Where Gobert lacks in shooting from the 5 spot with Dallas's go-to lineup with Kleba at the 5, he makes up for it with his screen setting and rim gravity as a lob threat. Luka doesn't run as many pick and rolls as I would like personally, and whenever he does it, it's not with a particularly strong screener or roll man. Gobert would be both of those things, and then of course there's everything that Rudy does on the defensive and rebounding side of things. But if I seem a bit skeptical, that's because I am, not for a lack of fit, because again, it's pretty much seamless, but just for what the actual trade would look like and Utah's motivations in this hypothetical trade. They can make the salaries work, but asset-wise, I think the Jazz could do better than Jalen Brunson and some draft assets that don't help them right now. Not that it's not necessarily a fair return for Gobert, but because the Jazz will want to remain competitive, assuming that they keep Donovan Mitchell. If they're going to be trading both of them, then I'd say that's a completely fair deal. But for where Utah will likely want to be, I doubt they go for this. Now, the next name I'm going to mention is potentially going to be a hard sell for a few people, but I genuinely believe that this is the best move that the Mavericks could make this offseason, and it's one that if it was all that they really did, they'd get a lot of heat for it, but I actually think it's all they really need to do. And I understand I have a lot of bias in this situation, but the player that I'm referring to has a crazy level of bang for their buck type potential with this deal, and this player is Christian Wood. Logistically, for a trade, Christian makes $14.3 million, which with the combined salaries of Green and Powell being 15, it means you can make this move without moving Tim Hardaway or Jalen Brunson. And value-wise, Christian Wood isn't going for a high asking price. Josh Green, the 26th pick, and a 2025 first-round pick, that will get a deal done for him, all while keeping Hayward and Brunson still on the team. The fact that you can get Christian and then still keep these two very valuable players to you makes it arguably a better trade, even if someone like Rudy Gobert is obviously a better player. Would you rather have these 3 players or this 1 player? It's debatable, but it's not just basically Christian Wood versus Rudy Gobert and the next 2 names I'm going to mention after this. Now, the reason this move is perfect is I'm sure when I mentioned Christian Wood as a star player, a lot of you were like, is Christian Wood even a star player? And that's exactly why I think this is perfect. I think Christian Wood is someone who, under the right circumstances, is a great and star level player, hasn't really had ideal circumstances in Houston in his most recent season. Compare Christian's first season in Houston, where he played with Harden and John Wall. He was much better and much more consistent than this year, where he was playing with like Eric Gordon and Jalen Green. Christian is someone who thrives with a really talented playmaker, and he didn't have that this year. In the 8 games he played with James Harden before he got traded, Christian averaged 22.5 points and 9.5 rebounds. In the rest of the games that season with John Wall, who is a lesser but still good playmaker, he averaged 20, and this year with no playmaker on his team, down to 17.9. And it was a frustrating 17.9 because Christian Wood can be extremely inconsistent. And the reason I believe for this inconsistency is the fact that he's not paired with a good playmaker. He is often having to create his own shot, which is something he can do, but it should be secondary. This year, he had 10% less of his shots assisted than at any other point in his career. Next to Luka Doncic, Wood would be the perfect pick and roll partner because he sets good screens and is a strong and crafty finisher. He also has the option to pop, as he's a career 38% three-point shooter. He's someone who shoots in the high 70s and 80s around the rim, and he's very good at getting to the rim just so long as someone actually sets him up. I strongly believe that Christian is a 23-9 guy on good efficiency next to Luka Doncic, and again, you give up very little in this move. Honestly, so little that you could probably use your remaining assets to get better with another move. The other 2 ideas are far more long shoddy, and one of them I just don't want to happen for biased reasons. But I do see a world where this team pulls off a sign and trade for either Kyrie Irving or Zach LaVine. Apparently, the Nets are hesitant to give Kyrie a long-term deal, and really, who can blame them for that? And that really goes both ways with Dallas. So maybe that does open an avenue for a trade, and I know I said the player can't be a big-time ball handler, but Kyrie still is enough of an off-ball player that it works. Same goes for Zach LaVine. If he wanted to leave Chicago, Dallas would be a good destination, but unfortunately, he's staying in Chicago, and I will not hear any other opposing opinion. But with that said, bringing Brunson back, Tim Hardaway Jr. returning and being healthy, which I think is a bigger deal than a lot of people have given it credit for, because last year, Tim Hardaway was being treated like damn near a star-level player for what he was doing in the playoffs. And then you add Christian Wood on top of that while keeping those two, I think that's fantastic. Including Spencer Dinwiddie, that is now 5 players on your roster who are capable of going for 20 points on any given night, and you still managed to keep your key role players in Finney Smith, Reggie Bullock, and Maxi Kleber. And I'd also supplement that bench with some defensive players. Luckily, Jason Kidd elevated this team past their usual defensive capabilities, so that should aid in making this still a good defense. Otherwise, I'd normally be a little bit concerned. But then your starters would be Jalen Brunson, Reggie Bullock, Luka Doncic, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Christian Wood, with Tim Hardaway Jr., Spencer Dinwiddie, and Maxi Kleber coming off of your bench. To me, that is a very good, very deep, especially very good offensively team that can go as far as anybody. So that's what I would do if I was the Mavericks in the offseason. I'm sure a splashier trade like Rudy Gobert is very much on the cards, but I just think something that's more low-key, but you actually get some players returning is probably more ideal. But I completely understand if you disagree, and maybe I'm just overhyping Christian Wood. But shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.